back from the 1-hour break. Council, are we ready to continue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are ready to proceed.
Please proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Gassama. I hope that you have had a very good lunch.
Thank you very much. I had a nice mbahal.
That's very Gambian, isn't it?
Very indeed.
Yes, thank you. So before the break, the chairman asked a question. Yeah. It centered mainly on the activities that were done while you were in Senegal. Yeah. But I asked the chairman to, I wouldn't want to take his question from him. Let the chairman ask his question and we proceed.
No, I give you the honor, please, my counsel. You proceed.
All right, then we would proceed as we had previously planned, in the expectation that whilst we progress, you would answer the question that the chairman preempted, which was about the demarches that were made by the ousted Jara government to restore itself in power. Can you tell us the activities that were going on, including the meetings with the Senegalese authorities?
Yeah, at first, I think when this was the third day or the second day when we had third, I would say around that time, we had an appointment to visit President Diouf. And just as we were about to leave, they made a further request. They said Madame Diouf, his wife, would like Lady Chilel to join the entourage going to see President Diouf, which was a bit odd because we thought this was going to be a discussion regarding issues concerning the Gambia. It's still normal for the First Lady to go, and then the First Lady, other Senegalese First Lady wants to meet her. But anyway, we all went together. On arrival, the rest of the delegations were sitting downstairs. Sadara was invited and with Lady Chilel to the kind of upper sitting room where they met President Diouf and Madame Diouf. And then about half an hour later, he came down. So we went back to the residence. So what happened? Nothing. No discussion as far as the Gambian situation is concerned. It was like a courtesy call, so to speak.
But how do you know there was no discussion about the Gambian situation?
When we learned that when we get back to the residence, we'll brief everybody what had happened at the State House. What Sadara reported. He wouldn't allow to be on one-to-one with him. It seems like he is sticking to that condition. To me, that maybe he's construed as if he's discussing anything in the Gambia, he's trying to get back to the Gambia. But that was the conditionality given for us going down there in Senegal. So he wouldn't discuss whatsoever any issue regarding Gambia. While we were downstairs, though, I think Kaba Bajo had a conversation with, by this time he was still there, hasn't left. Then I think General One wanted to know the type of personality Ajame was. I think he did explain to them briefly about his link with the MFDC movement in Casamance and his other activities he got involved in while he was a Zandam officer. So Kaba kind of briefed General One. So that was it.
What position did General One hold at the time?
I think he was the ADC. Yeah, he was the ADC to...
ADC, the rank of general?
Yes, I think it was. Later on he became general. I'm not sure, I can't remember his exact rank at the time. Yeah, of course, it's somebody I'm familiar with, who I should remember. But then, yeah, I'm used
Traditionally, what rank would an ADC be?
Not higher than a captain, not higher than a captain. But that is the British system. But I'm not sure about the French system. It could be.
Apart from Abdou Diouf and General One, were discussions held with any Senegalese officials?
Mostly with Mustafa Niasse. He seems to be the one who is very keen, by our estimation, to see some positive action in terms of restoring legality. And then, of course, the people in charge of the household, Colonel Taban and then Colonel Sise, they always used to intimate to us, something will come up, something will come up. It was just, hanging onto a faint hope that the position will change somehow.
How about the other officials, Senegalese officials who were present in the premises? What was their attitude towards the Jawara entourage?
We had almost the same team that were posted, because they told us during the Confederation, they were here. They serve in the country, and they are at least well-versed in English. So they were manning all the phones downstairs. So Sadara could not get any access to the outside world to explain the situation. Any calls that comes through will be blocked by them. I think on one occasion the daughters saw it, and then they went really mad at them.
Which daughter was that?
I can't remember exactly one of them. So,
daughter of who?
Sadauda's daughters, saw them, really listening to the phone, or, while the phone call was they tried to put a phone call through. And then she kind of challenged them, and they said, well, then you kusanta, so they can't do anything otherwise. They're just following orders.
What would you say about the treatment? Was it presidential? Was it cordial? Was it?
It was very tense. We were there for about 5 weeks. I wouldn't say, it was very, very tense, because he was eager. And the outside world were eager to hear from him an explanation. So during the process, we had it took a while before the British High Commissioner came there, and then the American ambassador in Dakar, and then Herman Cohen, who was the former Undersecretary of State for Africa. He also came.
For which government?
No, for U.S. From the U.S. He also came in, and then all of them tried to broker some kind of a deal with Abdou Diouf, so they can have a movement of his position, that of helping to restore legality. And then the one which was very obvious, what they wanted was, that was Baba Kingibe of Nigeria, the foreign minister. He also came with the sole purpose, in his own terms, and as he put it, to restore, the mistake. At the time I couldn't know exactly, what would have involved. Like I said, one of my theories, which I hope at some point, if and when you get Pastor Lajan here, you'll be able to elaborate on that. But he said he wants to rectify a mistake that happened in the Gambia, that Abacha felt responsible somehow for the coup.
And who was Kingibe?
Kingibe was the foreign minister of Nigeria at the time.
At the time.
Yes. But then, to our understanding, Senegal said they will not, Nigerian troops will not use their airspace or land space, to land route to come to the Gambia, which was the kind of permission they were seeking.
But of course, to send a force to Gambia, one does not necessarily have to use Senegalese airspace. We have at least 24 miles of ocean front.
Yes, that also became an option. And then there were troops then in Sierra Leone, to our understanding, which was under consideration. But Abacha wanted to kill two birds with one stone. He was already on the bad books of the British regarding what he did. I think it was to Abiola and Ken Sarawiwa. But I think they kind of had sanctions on him, but he wants to tie whatever he's doing for the British to lift that either sanctions or to endorse him. Because that's what we understand was the stumbling block for the sea route thing. Because he changed somehow. He wanted to tie his help so that these people endorse him so he can be looked as the good guy. But the British will not talk to him, nor will the Americans. You know.
All this thing was happening while you were in Dakar.
In Dakar, yes.
And what was the situation with regards to Sadauda? Did he have freedom of movement while he was in Dakar?
I don't think he had any desire to go. And the only place he went to was to my auntie, who was cooking for us. That was towards the end, just to thank her. You know, so she was the one cooking for us every day. So we see him and Lady Chilel went in person to visit her, and then just to thank her for all the service she rendered to us while we are staying in Dakar. But he didn't have any stomach to go anywhere. I don't think they would have stopped him going anywhere, you know, because but where would he go? You know, he was more interested in communicating, and that was denied him.
You mean communication with the outside world?
The outside world, yeah.
Was what?
That was denied him.
So you left Senegal after 5 weeks, you said.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
We went to on the, I think it was the 22nd of August. I think 22nd of August. That's when we first went to England. Yeah. They provided us Senegalese passports and then gave us some impress, which we didn't use. You know, we only used the passport as soon as we arrived. So that we send all the money and then the documents back to Colonel Taban. Yeah.
And the money as well?
And the money as well, yeah.
While in England, did Sadauda make any démarches to other governments for assistance?
Yes, now he has the freedom, of course. So then the sub-regional leaders wanted to hear from him. And then I think at the time, chairman was Rawlins.
Chairman of what?
ECOWAS, President Rawlins of Ghana. He was the first to invite us. And then they provided the fare, and then so we had to go there. So we went to meet him to explain the situation, what happened in the Gambia.
Did you attend that meeting?
Yes, I was there at that meeting, and then during the meeting, President Rawlins said, he told Sadauda when Sana Sabali and Co came here, I tried to tell them, you will have a hard time convincing the world that this man is what you're claiming him to be. You know, because we all know him. You know, that was his, this thing, but Sadauda was very categorical in his condemnation of all coups, whatever. I remember he particularly cited he was saying that Africa had fought for the freedom of Nelson Mandela. He thought that would have been the drawing line, that Africa should have moved forward by now, but we're still mired in this coup. That made the President Rawlins very defensive. As we said, chief, he can hit the table, So he told me, I understand him, that's what he does all the time anyway. He hits the table, so chief, what happened in Ghana is different from the Gambia. We all accept that. In other words, trying to rationalize why he had a coup in Ghana. But Sadauda was categorical. So the Ghana press was waiting, so he asked him to write a press statement. But he said, I want to see. He wanted to see Sadauda's press statement before he releases to the journalists. He wrote it, and when he saw it, he said, no, you can't say this. If you say this, you'll put me in trouble.
Do you know what Sadauda said in
well,
that statement?
I cannot say I only know the conversation, but I know it will be knowing him, it will be in his line of condemnation of all coups. It was very strongly worded, and then Rawlins said if he utters that, to the press, he'll be in trouble. So they agreed to disagree. there was no press conference. Then he gave us a flight to go and meet Abacha.
Abacha.
Abacha, yeah.
In which country?
In Nigeria. He was then the president in Nigeria.
And what happened there?
I'm not sure I got anything positive from Abacha. The only thing is helping him financially, just a bit for his family, because even at Hayward's Heath at one time, I counted about 29 heads, because living in a 5-bedroom, it was very, very difficult for him financially.
Where is Hayward's Heath?
Hayward's Heath was his own personal residence.
In where?
In England.
So you said about 20, how many people were living there?
29, the children and the grandchildren all together. I could count, with a 5-bedroom, so everybody has to squeeze in where you can fit. So it was very, very difficult, and especially when our families came in, so we are all there before we could manage any place to be as well.
So the discussions with Abacha came to nothing as far as restoring legality in Gambia was concerned.
Yes.
Did you go anywhere else?
We went to Guinea-Conakry, and then to meet. This were not all like one trip, so sometimes we wait for a while, few months. We went to America as well. Went to meet Kofi Annan, UN.
Can you tell us about that one?
It was, this were like all, if I'll say, colleagues that he had a very good interpersonal relationship with. Kofi Annan, I think when we are there, we met Dr. Walindau, because at that time in the early 90s, these people were not still settled. They were still not that settled because these appointments were going in and out, who will be where, or whether are they going to stay 2 years or 2 months or 3 months. I don't think they were settled around themselves. I'm not sure, but I thought at the time Walindau must have been approached. But then he came all the way to meet Sir Dawda at I think it was before Kofi Annan meeting, that to register his disapproval of these people approaching him. He said he's not interested. Giving his interpersonal relationship with Sir Dawda, what transpired. And Sir Dawda was like, anything else is better than these people. If you can, and then it's to be handed over to you, certainly. But no, he said, no, he wouldn't have it. We don't want anybody to hear it from somewhere else. You have few scenarios like that. So we met Kofi Annan, the same thing. So it's just, they just want to be informed regarding the situation, basically, and then some financial institution like the World Bank at the time, because when this particular day of the coup, my understanding was the day the Gateway project was meant to be, the check was going to be issued, because it found Sarah Jangha there that particular day. So they will be very much interested in the financial situation in the country. So we felt that we had to meet those institutions and brief them regarding what is happening.
Essentially, Mr. Gassama, when they lifted the anchor at Banjul port, the Jawara government ended there and then.
Yeah, there and then, yeah.
Yes, you have continued to look into the situation as to what happened in Gambia. What were your findings?
My findings were, this wasn't the first time this particular coup was hatched. It was earlier on in April.
This particular coup?
Well, it was a follow-up, because they are the same players still. They are the same players still, and this was in March, April of the same year. Of which I understand Sambaba kind of got wind of this coup, and then he reported it. And somehow, Minister of Defense prevailed on his dismissal as circulating a false rumor. But as it happens, this was the one which was meant to be executed later, which happened in July, because the same players, I wish you can find the report somewhere, who were implicated in that particular report, was the one that was to feature again in this particular coup of July 1994.
And who were those players?
Yeah, well, the Minister of Defense was implicated in it, as it is basically that it was organized around them. This involved around some senior officers, it was alleged, and then to the level that they had even received envelopes, money, and that there were meetings held like in Tendaba, in Sukuta, so there were layers of responsibilities assigned. And then to this end, Dada was recruited. That's why I said it was found that he was promised citizenship. And then had he, whoever, the head is, had succeeded so that he would stay. He didn't want to, he was hell-bent on not going back to Nigeria.
And Mr. Gassama, of course, you would be asked, what is your basis of knowledge?
Well, this is where I said the person who would be a first-hand information on this would be Pastor Lajang, because he was involved in the traveling, and then if he's here, and I understand you've contacted him, at what point, any other point, he'll be able to clarify, because he has a personal involvement, and then as far as the personal knowledge of who received what, from whom. And then, like he said, thorough Jaune's sacking from the president's office by his own account was ordered in person by the Minister of Defense, to remove him from State House, which was all part of the plot, to have his men in place.
Well, you have not answered the question about your basis of knowledge. Is it hearsay, or is it a first-hand account?
No, he told me, he informed me, so I would say for him it's a first-hand account, because he got involved.
But for you it's a second-hand account?
Secondary information, yes. So that's why I say allegedly.
And of course you would agree that this is yet another theory,
yes,
about coup, and those coups never happened.
Yes.
And tell me whether the 4 lieutenants who carried out the July 22nd coup d'etat were also allegedly part of that so-called group that was to carry out a coup in April or March.
No, they were not, but still within the same principle when it comes to the second coup as well.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Explain that. You said it's still within the same principle.
Yeah. Basically our Ministry of Defense, so this is where both have, in terms of having meetings, in terms of receiving money, yes, from the Vice President, as was alleged. So this is
who was giving money to who and for what?
They claim that it comes from the Vice President to Yahya Jammeh, and therefore for the 4 of them. Not only the 4, but I also understand that there are some senior officers who are also involved as well.
But of course, it is patently clear that the Vice President and the Minister of Defense received no benefit. At least outwardly, he received no benefit whatsoever from the coup.
Yeah,
correct?
That's why I said allegedly.
And if anything, he lost mightily, correct?
Yeah, well, sometimes you don't have the intended consequences when you start something else, because you never know the nature of the beast. You started something else. What is going to amount to or result to may not necessarily be to your own design.
But that is speculation under the circumstances. It's speculative, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it doesn't still negate the fact that if there were eyewitnesses like I myself and some of my colleagues, they are soldiers, had it been a court sitting, who would be prepared to come in person to testify.
Well,
This level. So they are the ones, that's what I'm saying, they are the ones who were very vehemently sure of these particular connections and the meetings that have happened, like even in Minte's account of the Nigerian officers bringing these junior officers to them, showing them virtually the route and how to go about it, something like that. If Dada's connection is certified that way, then you'll understand why these four would be having regular meetings at their mess while they're showing them exactly what to do. I'm sure when my other colleague comes in, I'm just fleshing out the bones, but he will put the meat onto it more than well, he's more conversant with this particular scenario vis-a-vis this four or any link to the Ministry of Defense.
it is interesting, but by no means compelling in terms of the quality of the evidence. You agree?
Yes, absolutely.
So I have no further questions, Mr. Chair. I cede the floor to the commissioners to ask the questions that they wish. And afterwards, Mr. Gassama, you'd be given an opportunity to say a few words, and we keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my counsel, and thank you very much, Mr. Gassama. Any questions from members of the Commission? Commissioner Kinte, you have the floor.
Commissioner Kinte, I remember you said something ridiculed you. Shehu Sabali lost his relative and went on funeral. It appeared if he would be so early at State House by 7,
Yes.
that would be too early, for example, to have been there. Yeah, it was possible within his scope at the time that he could use Farafenye, even influence the ferry to walk up to 10 so that he crosses. But indeed, in validating your point, if he had done that, and these things were already unripe, the rumors and indicators, I thought he would have first met Jawara than any other thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Not to meet the Americans and the exercise team. You don't talk about exercise when already your house is under fire. You first settle that. So even if he had succeeded in coming, like your indication could have been that he may not have gone at all.
Yeah.
Let's validate that he had gone, even if he had gone and come back. The first assignment should have been, one, the debriefing that he failed to give the president, he accomplished, and two, the rumors that are already on the ground, because then he must have been aware that the previous night or the previous evening, some soldiers were disarmed and are put on surveillance and so on. The president should have been briefed. This should have been the first priority of a vice president, even if he was not a minister of defense. Much more that he was at the time the minister of defense. So yes, that one I wouldn't call it negligence. Maybe it was a pre-plan and a wrongly managed welfare. What's your opinion?
Exactly. You know, most of us were scratching our heads as to, like you said, you know, the how early you can be in office, and anybody, any normal person, regarding if especially the security of the country is at threat. You know, wherever you are, the first thing you will do, even before you even get to the president, you will call him and let him know, definitely, I mean, this is in the offing, you know, what plans do we have, because you are here on the ground, give him advance notice so they can also put some security measures, countermeasures in place, and then to prepare. But like you said, you know, the exercise itself alone, you know, which the American ambassador at the time was trying to find out why it was moved from Mandinari and then to be an attack on Banjul via Denton Bridge. He couldn't understand that. And he instructed his counselor to find this from the PAM sect to no avail. After several attempts, the only answer he got, yeah, it was approved by the vice president, which is another way of just laying the opportunity for soldiers in the guise of having to have an exercise he doesn't know about, to find a way to attack Banjul. So the whole thing, only him can come and clarify, the situation, because it's all dubious, to put it mildly. Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions I would want clarification on. The first is, did former President Jawara speak to you about any possible motivation for Senegal's refusal to allow him to come back to power? That's the first. The second is, one of the witnesses who came here also mentioned that if Jawara had stepped down in '92, when he promised in one of the rallies that he was going to step down, it would have been different. Would that be something you would agree with? And how did that really play in power politics within the cabinet?
Okay. Regarding the Senegalese situation, the same question was put to him at Marlborough House by Sir Anthony Goodenough of the Foreign Office, why Senegalese attitudes toward him. Well, he only gave one sentence. He just said, I was defending the national interests of my country, referring to the Confederation. What transpired, what he was defending, he never elaborated. But I was saying, and they said, what's the problem? What's the problem with him, between you two? He just said, I was defending the national interests of my country. And that's all he said regarding that. As far as the 1992, where he was going to leave, I thought it started from there because it was about succession of power. We've seen across the border when Senghor left, he had an heir apparent that he nominated. But Sadauda has always been of the opinion that this conversation I once had with him was, if he nominates somebody and the party doesn't like that person, his influence is making that person to be elected. And he'll become a poor leader because the nation and the party are not behind that person. He said it's natural when party meet, a leader should be elected. Not everybody is expected to agree to that. But whoever emerges as the leader, he expected the party to rally behind. At that time, after that incident, also, Aji Fatou Sallah and Aji Safindao were spearheading the return of SM Diba to PPP. I remember a political bureau meeting where there was a heated argument as to what SM Diba, if and when he comes, should be given. Some said by virtue of his position as the head of the party, should be given something substantial. Some said he has to come and then, prove his loyalty to the party. So I remember that particular, very, very heated at the political bureau. I'm just like a soldier. I'm not a politician, but I just this for somebody. I'm observing from at a distance. So you could see the probably rationale behind, even if Sadada has nominated someone different, and this particular person has this means, it wouldn't have stopped a coup. Because if their personal ambition is either by hook or crook, I want to be the leader of this country, they will use whatever means, if it's available to them. And then what the army was at the time was infested by surrogates, that they selected, implanted them into the army. Some things that are warned against. I came to understand at a cabinet meeting at the inception of the army. But then this has been going on, which he became clear after that 1992 incident. So I'm not sure whether appointing someone would have prevented, if it is not the person who wants to be, wasn't elected to leave. So with or without that, some people have some ulterior motives, and they had the means, they will do it.
Final question. Did Sir Dawda have any retirement plan? What was his?
But that was his final. That's definitely, to me, that was his final term. He wasn't going to stand and all that. That was after the 1992. The next one is not going to contest the election. He was going to leave, and that's why all this movement of SND, because they all realize an opportunity now. He wants to come back to the party.
Sirif Mustafa Diba.
Yes, Sirif Mustafa Diba of NCP. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, Imam C. Sorry.
Imam C. Gassama,
thank you, Gassama. We thank you for the clarifications you've given. We thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. There are no further questions, Council. Please proceed.
The witness was asked a question by Commissioner Kinte, and I just want to ask one follow-up question to that. It's fact a question I intended to ask earlier, but for some reason it escaped me. A lot of fingers are now being pointed by this testimony to the Minister of Defense at the time. But I have a few questions on that. Do you know whether Keba Sise, the DG of NSS, do you know whether he briefed the Minister of Defense at the time about what was going on?
No, I have no idea that he's going to brief him. Like you said, we're still talking about the follow-up thing. With my conversation with Daba Marina, the late Daba Marina, was Keba knew. He knew everything as far as this thing is concerned. Of course, if my colleague comes to testify, you would know exactly from where this statement is coming from. He will put more.
I agree with that. That is an important piece of information.
Yeah.
But the question is, do you know whether Keba Sise did brief the Minister of Defense about what was going on at the time?
No, I didn't see him going there. He never mentioned going to the Minister of Defense to go and brief him. I've never seen him going toward that end. I never saw them together as well.
Would it be out of the ordinary that as Minister of Defense, he would know that extraordinary things or disturbances were happening in the military barracks, correct?
Yes, because it's his whole responsibility. He is in charge of the entire defense of the country.
So therefore, the fact that he knew that something was happening in the barracks would not be surprising, correct?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gassama, would you have any concluding remarks to make?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Some of my colleagues, I listened to them, their testimonies here. And then this theory was put forward that their intention was 3 months, and then they will just hand over to civil rule. Following the the thread of comments around social media and everything, some people think that's a kind of a laudable thing. I always say a function of intellect in anything, is advisory. It's advisory because you have the data, that you assess the data, and that will inform your decision to act. And then if these people are, some of them portray some level of intelligence, if they scouted around the world, as in Africa in particular, I don't see you will see a success story of a coup d'etat anywhere. If you go beyond all the pomp and ceremony and all the rhetoric, and you go to the specificity of their policy positions, by and large, they end up wrecking the economy of that particular country. Not talking about the havoc they wreak on the families and the lives of the citizens of those countries. So to try to dress it in such a nice way as our intention was only 3 months, to me, is a complete defect in there. If they had any modicum of intelligence, anybody tells you, even for a day, because you are carrying out an act whose consequences, the consequences you cannot control, you don't know where you're going to, and then the people you are going to put in power anyway, they did not have the mandate. To me, it is the most cowardly act, because you find yourself, you cannot talk to the people and convince them. If you want to be a politician, talk to the people and convince them that you want them to vote for you and elect you to be a position of leader by your agenda, by your ideology. But the thing that you have to do it by the power of, a barrel of a gun, to me, I think it's very, is the wrong thing to do in any circumstances. We should be categorical. We should not even entertain it. We should not try to sanitize it or even try to rationalize it. And then these are people, because I've seen some people who say, oh, they are heroes. Whenever I see that, I feel sad. Because some very good soldiers, lost their lives. I'm just reminded when we send soldiers to Liberia, they were young. Excuse me, sir.
We'll suspend the meeting for about 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Are you able to proceed?
Yes, please. My apologies for that. It's just that we had a very close bonding. In my time, even my 5 years away from the camp, it was like I never left. I was going to say, when we send our soldiers to Liberia, they didn't question the rationale behind sending them, given that our sub-region was under threat from the intelligence they gathered at the time about what Gaddafi was meant to unleash in the sub-region. The Anglophone-speaking West African countries took it upon themselves and then to go to aid another country, with the exception of France. Guinea-Conakry. These were young people, very brave. They never said we are inexperienced or anything else. They went, baptism of fire, literally. They excelled in executing their duties without fear. To come back and be subjected to your fellow Gambian as a friend, to meet a kind of treatment that they have undergone. It's very sad. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about them. We don't want to see that ever happening in this country again. we all want to forgive. We all say it's the Gambian character, the Maslaha culture. But I remember one thing Claudius said in Hamlet when he was asking for forgiveness. He asked this question: how can God forgive him? When he coveted the crown, he got it. He coveted the king's wife, he got it. He coveted power, and he got it. And you said you want forgiveness. By that, I mean those people who are still in position of influence within our current government, having meted this kind of either by torture, as the Quran says, torture is even worse than murder, and to see them still serving, to me, that's not something that's going to encourage reconciliation. We want to forgive, but we cannot forgive and then expect you to carry on the benefits of what you've gained by virtue of the position you hold now, when the rest of these families, victims' families, are languishing and they are struggling. And then we say, because of our Maslaha culture, forgive them. And they still maintain that position within the government, whether here or abroad or in any diplomatic career. I think, to me, that is wrong. That is something that we don't have to wait for the completion of this particular commission. That one, at the bare minimum, should be relieved of their duties. You know, we're not accusing, we're not saying try them. We, at one time, these were our brothers, very good brothers at that. We want to be able to say, we forgive you, meet you, but you cannot come and commit all those things, and you still want to maintain those positions, especially within the army itself. I think that one is something that definitely the whole nation need to speak out on that particular one. The other thing I wanted to address was, this goes to our religious colleagues here. What made us all sit down here looking after the human rights violation issues, or be it the Constitution, or be it to our sovereignty. To me, to my understanding, we owe a lot to our religious scholars we had before, starting from either from Al-Kindi, Ibn Sina, Imam Malik or Imam Ghazal, Ibn Rusud. On the Christian side, you have St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, St. Thomas and Aquinas. These were all influential philosophers that came to shape the society. Even people like, through their scholastic training, gave us what we are now trying to fight for, either human rights or to establish our own sovereignty. And I think what had happened here, our religion, they are meant to be our internal moral legislatures, in showing not only philosophically, but in showing be our moral compass. But what had happened in the 22 years, it's very sad to say, we've seen people do certain things bad, and then we excuse it in the form of, how would I call it, causal determinism. That's something that God has ordained. We have to decide either to be a nation of laws, anybody, there's a point of responsibility where you must be responsible for your actions. You cannot excuse everything to either biological determinism, as I've seen some people do. It's happened X place, Y place, so therefore it's okay, or somehow alluding to that if it happens here. Or it's something ordained by God. We all know that's not true. I think we need our religious leaders, these two great religions, to step forward It might not be popular, but anytime something is wrong in society, for them to speak out. To our politicians, Rome was not built in a day. You know, in Europe, they had about 100 years war. In Britain, about 35 years war. And still 2 years we have Brexit. We couldn't get it right. We don't expect any political party to come and get everything right at the first go. What we must never try to do, to have a shortcut by thinking that by influencing the army to help you in your own project, is your quickest way to success. That's always, and to me, a route for disaster. And it will take, like Honorable MC Cham said here, 50 years or so, you set back to recover. You know, the emotional scar alone, you know, will take, God knows, decades for us to recover from. You know, politicians should be mindful of what they say. People who join the army, for us, we never coveted anything from anybody. It's just to serve your nation. That's all we wanted to do. Because we're talking about sector reforms. You know, buying the loyalty of the army, it never works in any country. In fact, statistics have shown the more you spend to buy the upper echelon of the army, the more likelihood you'll be overthrown. Because at some point, the highest bidder will come. Army is meant to believe in your values, in your standards, in the ethos of the country, selflessly serving without looking for any riches. This is what I know to be the army. I think I'll end it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gassama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gassama, for those very wise words. And a special thanks really to you for having traveled thousands of miles to come and assist at this commission in creating a historical record of what happened in 22 years, 1994 to 2017. Your contribution covers the phase that sets the context in which those 22 years of violations really happened. It's a vital part of our exercise, and we want to thank you enormously for coming all the way here to testify before this commission. If there are no questions, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
See what?
No further questions for the witness, Mr. Chairman, except that I would wish to put in the list of those who are on board the ship as an exhibit to be exhibit number 25, 0025. With your indulgence, Mr. Chair, we add this document on the record.
Thank you. Request granted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, indeed. And the commission is not meeting tomorrow. We have other functions to carry out, but we will meet here again. The next public hearing would be on Tuesday, Monday being a public holiday, Independence Day. If there are no further questions or points to make, we would end the day today and wish you all happy Independence Day and a good weekend. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.